I didn't select it. I didn't select the title of my presentation, and I accepted the title, but I didn't choose to talk about the bad things, the evil, the bad people, the people who do not respect moral rules. Because what is fashionable today is to speak about ethical behavior, good people, trust, generosity. Professor Gomila in the morning has explained why good people are good people, good guys are good guys, but my presentation is about the bad guys.
Tantos hay.
There are too many bad guys that in more than once we have seen that if they flew, they could disappear, they could expand.
If we put them all in the sky, then the sun will go dark suddenly. But the question is then, are humans the good guys? Are they the bad guys? Are they in the middle? How many are there? We don't know. We don't have a clue about it. We still don't know. But there are some, certainly. It's obvious that we have systems of third parties that are dedicated to hunt them and recruit them and watch them closely. And all the societies have this. All societies have policemen and a judicial system. Why? To get the bad guys and get them out of the circulation, and sometimes to even eliminate them. Therefore, there must be some bad guys. That means that if we do a visual scale like this, we can go from the ultra-sociability to the cooperation, sociality, and strict morality. This means there are naughty people, there are cheaters, there are corruptors, there are criminals, and probably even moral idiots. There are. And that's why we have this invention consisting on specific systems to combat, hunt them, and close them if possible. Even in the recent times, we say, in order to try and get closer to the roots of the retributional systems, that is, applying sanctions to those who misbehaved, for that we have brain structures. Even for that we have brain structures. And I'm not inventing this. I'm not making it up. It's there. You can see it. I'm going to go very quickly over this, because ultimately the wisdom that we've inherited told us, well, these systems that we have set up in order to catch the bad guys and sanction them and recruit them and eliminate them, and the tendency to behave properly is something that must have been imposed by a specific culture. Each person their own culture. Here you can see ours, and you can see that in ours there are 5 norms dedicated to praise the authority, the supreme police, and then we have the ordinary behavioral norms, and that is, behave well with your people, don't kill, don't injure, don't make anyone suffer physically, don't steal, do not harm, and try even not to have the temptation to do it, ultimately. And it's summarized in the key rule: behave as you expect others to behave with you. This that used to come from tradition, now is studied in the lab, and when they try to detect the fundamental elements of what we could call the correct behavior, in respect to the bad one, the elements, the fundamental elements are do not harm, physically we're talking, not even psychologically, behave correctly, fair, make your people be more prevalent than those that you don't know, the foreigners, from family to tribe to the country to the species. It's like, okay, let's exterminate mosquitoes because we're not interested in them, but pets, no, because we're interested in pets ultimately, recently. Let's respect the authority and let's try and be clean, a little bit clean, because if we're not clean, then there will be some inconveniences of many types as well. And this seems to be quite universal. And we can study this, we can measure this. Okay, all right then. We've got the situation clear. So let's go and try and catch the bad guys. We can all be the bad guys, all of us. You have an example here that is an incredible example. It's the title of an article that you will see immediately now. It says that the good and humiliation is the best policeman. The light is the best police, because if this natural experiment has been tested in a forest before, and there are actually some additional contextual elements that help people behave better. This was the title of a few years ago of some American and Canadian psychologist. That was the title, Good Lamps Are the Best Police. In the streets, we're talking. So darkness increases this honesty and self-interested behavior. And selfish, that is the bad behavior, the non-convenient one. What did they do then? They proved this with some tests of lies. So if they decreased the light in the class where they were having some questionnaires of lies, then people would tell more lies. Simply like this. Then they played an economics game that was played by Gomila this morning, the game of the dictator. That is the second experiment. And apart from giving them $5 for participating in this game, so that economists do, $5 was sure, just by participating. And then they have $6 to share in the game, the dictator game, where one is the dictator that decides what part of the prize is going to offer, and the other one is the recipient, who cannot say anything, nothing at all. Well, in ordinary conditions, without sunglasses, and offer without sunglasses, not changing the light, but wearing actually sunglasses, that is going inside a body that is wearing sunglasses. This is what this is meaning. Well, there you go. Americans are good people, which is true. It's true. It's true. American people are good people. The Spaniards often tend to think that they're not. But yes, in general, American boys and girls are nice people. They're friendly. And from the $6 that they have to play, they give $3. The average is 2.7. So most of them are giving between 2 and 3 and 4 even dollars. That means they're really good guys and good girls, these Americans. But if they wear sunglasses, then with sunglasses, they actually save $1. It's been repeated in a Canadian university with Americans. They had exactly the same results. And pay attention to this. There's a negative relationship, which is very powerful, of 0.7 between the anonymous sensation that you have when you're wearing sunglasses and the offer. So the more anonymous you are, because of the darkness, as auto-induced or self-induced, then the more anonymous you are, the less you give with those people that you are never going to interact again. So people behind sunglasses is less reliable. Is a lot naughtier. But these are boys from Princeton University, because they have the best qualifications, and the second ones are from Montreal, boys and girls. So we all have the potentiality to be good people and bad people with little changes, with small changes. Oh dear. Holland, or the Netherlands, Groningen. Because somebody should be wondering immediately, okay, well, these are experiments, and even though people may have a strong sensation of irreality, you try all the participants to be totally unknown from each other. They're never going to meet each other again. They actually know, the truth is that they actually know that they are participating in an experiment, and that is not reality. And it is the case. So this comment is correct, and we must accept it. Well, these Dutch people from the University of Groningen, they carried out an experiment aimed to catch dishonest behavior in ordinary people. But without it being an experiment, it was an observation. They're going to be guinea pigs, but they won't know that they are. And they asked for permission to the municipality of Groningen and the University of Groningen. I know this place myself. It's a supermarket that it's behind the biggest square in Groningen, a small city in the north of the Netherlands, a university city, very pretty with canals and with a lot of university atmosphere. And this place here is actually the bicycle parking that is behind the supermarket, where students park their bicycles when they go shopping. They leave their bicycle there because it's where they have to leave the bicycle. And they had placed cameras to record the behavior of the individuals without them knowing it. When they leave from the supermarket, where they've just been doing their shopping at different times of the day. Absolute correct controls. It was very well done. Well, what they used to do was the following. You can see here there is a norm. Is with those codes that we created, the justice systems to compensate the good ones, and etc. There is a norm here that says you cannot do graffitis here. It's very clear from the municipality. You can see that in one photograph the norm is respected, and in the other photograph the norm is not respected. Okay? Right. Then in the first photo, in the first image, these are the conditions where there is a norm that is very clear, no one can ignore, and is also respected. The ones that did the researchers, they placed flyers in the handles of the bicycles that you can see, and that used to be a leaflet for a pizza place in a nearby street. So basically a flyer that they placed in this bicycle. So they measured the amount of people that dirtied the floor, which is the dishonest behavior and civic. Well, there you can see the results. Out of 77 cyclists that were observed during the day in different seasons, 33%, when the norms are respected, they dirty the floor. You understand, do you? So 2/3 of it do not dirty the floor. They look at the flyer, they observe it, and some of them may even say, well, I'm interested in it, but the others are not interested, and they keep it, and when they get to a bin or in their own houses, then they throw it to the bin. But 33% of them don't do that. They throw it on the floor. Watch here, the next condition is the same norm is there. You cannot do graffitis, but this norm is not being respected because the researchers actually did the graffitis themselves. They did it on purpose in different days in order to control it properly. Well, watch here how out of 77 cyclists, different cyclists from before, 69% of them, let's round it up, 70% of them dirtied the wall. So in natural conditions, 30% of the people, both if the norms are observed and if they're not, they behave. When the norms are not observed, there is another 30%, we're rounding here, that does not respect the norms, even if they are respected. And the 40% in the middle does whatever is more prevalent. The silent majority does the prevalent behavior. That means the Bible was not right. There aren't good guys and bad guys. We don't have Cain and Abels. There is a proportion of Cains and a proportion of Abels. And in the middle, there are people that either go one side or the other, depending on what's more prevalent. We've already moved forward. We've moved forward here. This is very important because there are a lot of discussions on this question that have lasted thousands of years. A lot of people keep on saying that, no, humans are all like angels, little angels. They're born with good trends. And then there are contexts and situations and that spoil these people, and some of them become really, really spoiled and damaged, and others are have a bit better results. Some people think, yeah, most people are actually good, but we need to watch them now and then because there may be a terrible Cain. We don't know why, but it exists, so we need to watch very closely. This is quite biblical. This goes a little bit beyond that. With a simple experiment, it solves the problem, and it allows us to say they've been wrong for 3,000 years. It's more complicated. But somebody should wonder, well, okay, this is quite a naturalistic observation. It's not an experiment. People didn't know that they were an experiment. They got them in the middle of an experiment. But that's a behavior that is only about throwing paper on the floor, but this cannot be enough to generalize. Okay, no, and because the researchers are not so naive in their own experiment, they already looked for other situations in the experiment itself.
And next, the parking. This is the parking that is under the supermarkets. Under the supermarkets. And you can see big cars, powerful cars, because the city is very rich and the standard of living is quite high. So as we have seen, we have seen before the parking of the student, but this is the parking of the ladies or men who go shopping. Such as in my town in San Cugat, that you have to watch because ladies are in very big cars and you are going to be killed if you are not paying attention with your small car. But these ladies are good, but you are going to be run over if you don't pay attention when they carry their children to school. It's very dangerous, in fact. And here the rule that they have before entering into the parking is to leave the trolleys in the place where trolleys have to be. And this was specified in their language. And the measure was exactly the same. The flyers were left under the windshield wipers, and the results were exactly the same. These rich people, and some men, not only ladies, when they look at the trolleys just spread it around the places, 60% of them get the floor dirty, which is something very unusual in the Netherlands. However, when trolleys were put in the right place, only 30% of the people get the floor dirty. It's true that also ladies from a different social level get the floor dirty, so the results were exactly the same. Also in the surface parking, and you can read the regulation, the rule there, don't leave bicycles trapped in the fence, and don't trespass, because this is also a regulation. They have to go to the main door. But if they found bicycles, everybody could trespass the fence. And then the other experiment was with money, and you can see this envelope there. This is money inside an envelope. This is real, and if you take this money, you are stealing. It's not to get the floor dirty. This is stealing. This is money with an envelope. This is someone who has opened the envelope and took the money. So the number of people that takes the money is or can be compared with the other two experiments. And people took the money when the envelope was dirty, because the envelope had something written on it or some graffiti on it. So we can conclude something from all these experiments. We have more experiments that say the same thing or that conclude the same findings. There is an amount of people for each situation, for each context, that would tell you that they behave well, that they always behave well, regardless the condition. There is a minority between 10 and 30% of people that take into account punishment and take into account situations, but they will behave bad. And in the middle, we have people who join the most common conditions. If people are behaving bad, they will behave bad. If people are normally behaving well, they will behave well. So this reminds us, this is connected with the Milgram experiments that we have here. When people were requested to torture other people, and now we are talking about torture, which is physical pain on people when they were required to torture other people to measure the speed of the learning level, but in fact they were required to apply electrical shocks that were damaging other people. 30% of them, 30% of these people resists or says that will not torture. And this is the other way around, because what is very important here is to explain those people who resisted, who say no. And there are many other variations of these experiments and changes, small modifications, many versions, but there is 15% of the people who refuse to continue. Who said, no, we are not going to torture, we are not going to be in the experiments, and they just go away. And there is 15, 20 people, more or less, that says that they are not going to continue with these electroshocks. And we've seen before the experiments with the papers on the floor, the bicycles trespassing places where we are not allowed to do. But this is an experiment of damage, of physical damage, and we can see here that the proportions are more or less the same. But here we have another example. Here people had the opportunity to tell lies. They were allowed to tell lies. They had the opportunity to tell lies. And the protocol is more or less simple. There were people, and we took neuroimaging or neuroimages from them, but they had to say
Si la predicción era correcta, ganaban $3. Y si era incorrecta.
So they have to say whether the coin would be a face or a reverse of the coin. And the most of the people, or the trials, and this was real money, and this money that they could take with them, most of them said, no, we didn't have the opportunity to tell lies.
You didn't have, if you could just press the button, say one face, two reverse. And if it was the case, when you threw the coin, then you could say, okay, $3 for you. But there are other trials that told them that sometimes the program fails, and it gave them a window of opportunity where you could think, okay, it could be face or reverse, but you couldn't say anything. And then they asked you, okay, what was it? And if you said face, even though you thought reverse, then they would give you $3. So there was an opportunity to lie, a wonderful opportunity to lie, and some of them saw it at the beginning. I said, okay, there'll be an opportunity to lie. Yeah, okay, well, we need to carry out the experiment. Well, let's go ahead then. In these circumstances, it's the same. We have the same results. This is a number of subjects. There's a number of subjects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The dishonest group are those who tend to because if you need to guess a coin that you throw up, how many times it's face, how many times it's reverse, in a lot of throws, then the probability for you to get it right is around the 45 and 65%. If you, in the trials where you have the opportunity to lie, you always got it right, it means you're a liar. So the liars, this is a posteriori, but the liars are 12, 12, and 12. The same results in another paradigm, approximately in a completely different task. Okay, this is it. This is the end of the class. I'm tired. This was the introduction. I guess I've convinced you. I didn't need to, really. I didn't. I don't know, I haven't checked, but I'm convinced that in all the languages in the world, there are many more terms dedicated to identifying the bad guys than to identify the good guys. And this is a measure. It's an indirect measure, but it is a measure. Okay, well, the question here is, what happens then for people to have that tendency to damage, to misbehave, to hurt, to lie, even though the price is not that much, it's $12. Why? What's the purpose? They may even get you and your own university. Well, even then they do it. They do lie. What happens then? Well, neurologists suspect, they've done it for about 100 years, even more, that there must be, and they suspected this since this case that I'm not going to explain, you must have heard of it in all the classes, but since it got the fame back again. But anyway, they've been suspecting this for about 140 years ago, that there must be some regions in the anterior prefrontal cortex, and particularly in the base of the prefrontal anterior cortex. There's some regions that determine these tendencies, and maybe those who have a tendency to misbehave have a disorder in this kind of, or these areas do not function properly in those people who have a tendency to misbehave. Neurologists think, therefore, that the adult injuries in the frontal, medial, and basal anterior regions go from the responsible and cooperative civic behavior to the systematic immoral behavior. And also, these people, these neurologists, have signs of the fact that there may be people without injuries that have some crystallizations of their personality, like psychopaths, narcissistic, messianic, and glory cravers that are actually dangerous. And perhaps this is because in the regions where the injuries produce severe deficits, in these ones here, they have subtle dysfunctionalities. This is probably the basic approach. The most spectacular case is that of two children, a boy and a girl. And it is a case from Damasio in 1999. There are two more in the literature. It says impairment of social and moral behavior related to early damage in human prefrontal cortex. It says, the conclusion here, the early onset prefrontal damage resulted in a syndrome resembling what psychiatrists call psychopathy. That is, the bad guys that tend to be dangerous, the repetitive bad guys that are morbid, cruel, and cold. The worst bad guys. And even thriller kind of thrillers and police books and etc. Well, here you have the boy and the girl that were analyzed by Damasio. They were 21 and 22 years old. This is this upper level we have the girl's brain, and in the lower we have the boy's brain. Young both of them, the boy and the girl. Well, the injury in the girl happened when she was 5 in a traffic accident. A car actually ran over her in the trolley, and she was thrown against the pavement, and she had this injury that is anterior, basal, and the 2 hemispheres. Here you can see the base of the brain. Here you have the another type of vision, and here you have different type of cortexes, horizontals and vertical, to see the extension of the injury. And the boy had a benign tumor that grew very quickly, and therefore the surgeons intervened when he was 8 months old, because otherwise it would have started altering other regions that were quite relevant. So with a small implication of the other hemisphere here as well. Well, in both children, both of them high class, middle, high class, and high class, and both families dedicated years and years to their education. They've recovered quite a lot in 5 months. They were 5 months and 8 months old. They walked when they had to talk. They played when they had to talk. They did the primary. They did the secondary. They had very good qualifications to go to university, good universities, but they decided not to. Both of them had already a very police curriculum and an emotional curriculum, and also promiscuous behavior. Both of them had children already before university, but from when they were children, even though they didn't have academic issues or problems, they had already shown problems from the kindergarten. They've beaten other children, they've pulled hairs, they misbehaved in the class really badly, both physically and verbally. They were really skilled to insult the teachers and the parents very, very nastily. And total absence of guilt and compassion. They were never guilty of anything. It was always someone else's fault. It was always the other's fault for them to do what they did. Their IQ was also quite okay, 115 and 116, something like that. Correct, nothing outstanding, but correct. So they asked them to play in something that was called the Iowa gambling test. Whenever it was, the first time it was played, it was in my lab, but because we didn't get it to have a lot of impact in the 80s, then it's not called the Bellaterra gambling test, but it's actually published. But it's instead called Iowa gambling test, and it's the same one. We used to play with pesetas, and not many, and in Iowa they play with $2,000. So there was no way to compete, really. So this game is, I'll explain it, I'm not sure whether you know it. It's like playing the solitaire with 4 blocks of cards, A, B, C, and D. You can change this so that you control it. And what they have to do is they have to unveil cards, click to unveil cards, and each card has either a prize or a punishment associated to it. And this changes in each person or in each player. There are some blocks where when you give small rewards and punishments every now and then, but are bearable. And there are cards that give you some very powerful rewards, but if you get a bad series, then you get so many punishments that you can get into red numbers, but you discover this when you play. So you play, imagine you click A, and A gives you 50. In order to generate appetite in the first trials, there's always a reinforcement in the initial trials. So you click again and you get another 50. You get 2,050, and then 2,100, 2,150, 2,300, etc. Around the trial 8, 9, 11 or so, you start seeing punishments. If you keep going with the same click, then you get 100. Well, no problem. You do it again, oops, another 100. And then you choose another one that gives you more. you had 1,700, then you choose another one. It gives you more, and you keep going up higher, but then you get a stronger punishment, and you fall quickly. So between the trial 20 and the trial 30, everybody knows what it is about, because it's very easy. And when you cancel the experiment and you ask people, you know what this is about? And we record the answer. There was no differences between the boy, the girl, and the controls. There are no differences. Both the boy and the girl, they were 21 and 22 years old, but there were no differences to resolve the game at a cognitive level. There were no differences between them and the controls that had no injuries, controls that were of the same level in terms of family, class, gender, etc. But here you have the results of the boy and the girl. The researchers don't say when the game finishes. They are careful enough so that when they decide to finish, here we finished at 100, you saw it there, but it not always finishes at 100, so that people go back on with it about $200 for having done a lot of things, for having done all the measures and etc. maximum. Because this is good, between 200 and 300, the one that takes more, no more than that. But look at these, the normal ones in 100 trials, these are the blocks, the dangerous blocks of cards, those who give you a big reward but intense punishments, and if you have a bad moment, you can get in red numbers. So you can see the difference here. So you can see here that sometimes they have the temptation. They are happy to take the risk of the punishment in order to probably get a good reward. But look at the girl. The girl who understood exactly the same before the 30 trial, which were the good and which were the bad blocks. She goes on playing to risk. And she does 68 options to the dangerous blocks and 32 to the safe ones, and the boy 54 to the dangerous ones and 36 to the other one. And when they were asked at the end, why do you do this? If you know that this is a dangerous game and you may lose, because both of them ended up in red numbers, both of them, severe losses actually, why did you carry on? And the answer was the typical from the drug addict. Well, what if he changed afterwards? That was their answer. But pay attention, this is electrodermal activity. That is an independent physiological measure of to what extent the internal system aware you or warn you about the risks of what you're doing. You're actually playing with money. That it could actually be important, because if you talk about $2,000, that is a quite serious amount. But look here, the normal ones, the normal controls, we don't need the statistics here, it's quite obvious. The normal ones get much more altered than the boy and the girl. Much more. They get much more altered when they face the dangerous decks as opposed to the good ones. The boy and the girl, pretty much nothing, but look at this, their body is wrong. It's a little bit more activated. The electrodermal reactivity for the boring decks with respect to the dangerous decks. Not only they react less to the risk, but they also react wrongly. And this does not depend on the fact that the peripheral perception systems perceive them or not. They did a similar experiment, and there were not significant differences. So here there must be a problem in the evaluation of the signal of risk with respect to the signal of safety. Here you have the current theory of what happens to the bad guys when people are placed in that scale that we saw before, close to the extremes of the bad guys. People have some kind of dysfunctionality that gets close to these people who've actually lost a whole region in the brain that is in charge of taking care of these issues.
And they did more things. They were explained them some dilemmas that you can see here. I'm sorry, but the speaker has disconnected the microphone. Yeah. Okay, here we are. You go sailing and you are being helped by the safeguard, and the sea is in a terrible condition, and you have to throw people over the deck. And what would you select, your mother or your dog? This is the first question. You have to choose between your mother and your dog. To throw your mother or your dog? Normal people, the normal controls, the normal comparison controls says that we have to throw the dog out. Those people who have suffered from injuries in the brain when they are adult, this gauge injuries says that we have to throw the dog out, because they say that the rule, the social and moral rule, once trained and sanctioned, they recall their background and they know that they have to throw the dog out. But the boy and the girl said the mother to throw their mother out. And they had a reason for that, because my mother is a pain, but the dog is defending me, is always defending me. So my dog is my ally, and I'm going to throw my mother out. And this was their decision. And here we have the main question. That is the question that we ask ourselves when these things happen, when these things that we all understand that are very, very bad, or very difficult to understand, at least. These people here, this boy, this person here, that has entertained all the people from Norway and all the people in my group of research, because we don't know whether he has a disorder or not. And pay attention, because we don't know if he has a disorder or not, because the prosecutor said, okay, let's consider that he suffers from a disorder, and he says, no, I don't have any disorder, I am not suffering from any disorder. I have some objectives in my life and I fight because I have some objectives and I am going to favor my intentions, but I'm not ill, I'm not sick, I'm not having a disorder. And he's right, because he's been processed and he's been punished because he's done something very bad, because, I mean, he has killed people, but he's not suffering from a disorder. I mean, the judge has not considered him to be an ill person or to be sick. The prosecutor wanted to consider him to be sick, but he didn't want to. And this person here is a person from Córdoba in Spain. It's a local thing in Spain, because nobody understands why he did something like that and how he could behave in such a manner, because it's even easier to understand what he did if we think that he is insane. But we don't understand how he behaves, and he has behaved in such a way if he's not like that, if he did what he did. This is the question that we are worried about. How can we go, because this is what this man did, accompanying the police in the same place where he has killed their children. And this is not from Norway, it's someone from Córdoba, I mean, it's Spain. We are familiar with the case, and he killed his children. We can say, well, people in Norway are crazy, are mad, but this is in Spain, so we have to say that we know the situation. Andy Murray, the tennis player, was at a school in a class where a teacher killed people in the classroom. And I'm talking about Andy Murray, the tennis player. I mean, he experienced something like that. And this is the question that we sometimes pose ourselves. What happens? What are the mechanisms in our minds behind psychopathic behavior, this dangerous behavior of these people who has killed many other people, and that they are so called to not show any kind of emotions before police, before courts, before the society, and they carry their load, and they are called, and they don't show any kind of emotions when they have killed people without, you know, surrender and say, okay, I did it. This is the topic. This is the main topic. Do you want me to continue? No? Yeah? Okay. I'll go on. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. And so I'm going to skip that because this is about the dilemmas. And in the dilemmas that we have mentioned before, this fact of sacrificing our lives for other people, which are hypotheses. This is a game, is a new game that has been criticized because it's not connected with reality, but it's good because we know that when people have to think about dilemmas that are closer to ourselves, even though they are imagined. If it's close to you, if you have access to someone you have to sacrifice, then the regions, the areas that are activated are those who are injured in the kids that we mentioned before that end up being psychopaths. This girl and the boy are psychopaths. I mean, we didn't find a solution for them. They are still psychopaths. We can think about drugs to help them, but we cannot cure them. And this is on trial. And they wear bracelets because we have to monitor them. And these other regions are the posterior cingulate. These other regions, these areas of the brain that are related to moral opinions, to moral decisions. They link injuries or data from injuries with normal data, which in severe situation, and this is good for research. But I'm going to continue because I don't want to get into detail. We also have asked mothers to sacrifice their babies crying, because if they cry, it's an alarm signal, and when a baby cries, mothers tend to be supportive, but we have asked them to sacrifice them, and mothers find it difficult to take this kind of decision, but we have measured the reaction time and everything, and results are related. They connect with each other, they correlate, and I'm going to summarize because we don't have time, because the areas that are related to strong moral and powerful decisions, those decisions that that can lead you towards the evil, these are the regions. These are the regions, and these are the regions that we have shown as injured before. This is the posterior cingulate, the insula in the middle, and here we have more the superior cingulate, the temporal lobe. These are the areas, the regions of the brain where we have to make moral decisions, and strong moral decisions. And these are the areas where psychopaths, I'm going to skip, where psychopaths in prison, and this has done in many places. This is an experiment that we have had in Spain. We have 3 experiments with prisoners in the Lerida prison, and also in Oviedo we have another experiment. Psychopaths, therefore, tend to present or to show an inadequate functioning of these regions that we have seen before. Those who were injured in the adult cases or in the kids and the children, the amygdalas and the insula areas that have connections within them. More areas of the brain as well.
Si quieren datos, bueno, estos son...
If you want data, if you want more information, if you want data, you can have them here. These are the things that we mention, if they are called, if they are manipulating on people, if they lie or things like that. These are the items that we mention, if they are cold, if they are not sensitive enough. All these things that we measure. But pay attention, they don't have empathy, well, they have empathy or sympathy disorders, but they don't lack empathy. They understand desires, they understand ambitions, and they understand others' ambitions in order to manipulate. What they don't have is this right mechanism to manage them, which is something different. So when we measure the items in them, we have observed a reduction of gray matter in the areas that we have just mentioned. This is a sample from Brazil. It's a Brazilian sample, but we have samples in Spain, small, to be honest. This is about 30 or 40 people participating, but we see a reduction of gray matter levels in orbitofrontal cortex, in the superior temporal cingulate, in the insula. And we also find, and this is German, this is from Germany, reduction of gray matter levels in the posterior cingulate, in the anterior cingulate, in temporal lobes, which is related to the intensity of the psychopathy scale. The more cold, the colder they are, the less complexity we find in the gray matter levels. And when we do the neuroimaging techniques, we also find interesting results. I don't know what is happening with my slides.
¿Sí? No, ya está. Aquí.
Okay, here we are. These are children. This is slides of children, adolescents, where we have measured their tendency to psychopathy, this tendency to damage to treat other people in a cruel way and to manipulate other people, to tell lies, and to show a cold behavior when they done something badly. This is a comparison, and this is a comparison between healthy adolescents and people who suffer from disorders. And they had to analyze faces. They had to analyze faces that are suffering, and these people activate less these alarm signals in front of a painful situation. And this is how we measured it. And more examples, more experiments. How much time do we have left? 5 minutes, okay, we have 5 minutes left.
They're also quite vengeance They like revenge. We can all cultivate revenge feelings if they do something to us, all of us. In fact, quite a lot of things I've already said, even though I've taken them to the extreme of the naughtiness, we can all actually get closer in specific circumstances. This is the work that is studied the desires of revenge in the face of the application of pain to another person. This is physical torture. They used to ask two subjects to play a game. There are two individuals that didn't know each other. One had to go through the neuroimaging machine. The other one didn't. He's the one that had to. It was his turn, but randomly he was the one that had to receive the shocks. But previously they had to play a game where the opponent either is good to you or is bad to you. I'll go back. This was the game. They were given $10 or pounds for each turn. Before they put them in the machine to do things, they asked them to play one against the other. They were unknown to each other, totally unknown to each other. And they were told, okay, if you invest on the second, then the market will behave well and they will triple your amount, so you can then share. So 10 will become 30, and you can divide 15 and 15 for each. So the second used to be an ally to the researchers, but the subjects didn't know. And the allied one, at the beginning, he was quite good. He behaved quite well to catch the first one. But after that, he started misbehaving, and sometimes he was behaving really, really badly. He didn't return anything. And therefore, the first, you started to think, oh, hold on a second. This person that they've asked me to play against is quite cheeky. Actually, he's a strictly cheeky person. Then they placed them what they did is they put the subject in the neuroimaging equipment, and the one that had misbehaved used to sit down in a bed next to it, and he was applied electrical shocks with more or less intensity depending on the signal that it received. It was quite a complex protocol. Then they asked them to play again, and they did the same again in order to measure up to what extent the subject that was being measured, how he responded to the pain signals of the other individual. How did his brain process this? These were the results. This is in women, and the top part of the slide, and the bottom is part of the slide is men. In women, you could see the activation of insular regions and anterior frontal regions that participate in the mechanism that we've seen so far when they are facing moments where a person next to you is suffering some pain and it's like you. The only thing is that either that person behaved with you or misbehaved with you. Well, when the person behaved well, the girls or the women suffer. Well, not the girls. This is the brain of sufferment. Suffer. They suffer for the other's physical pain. It's quite high, but if the other person has not behaved, your brain suffers less. If the other person has not behaved properly with you, then your brain suffers less. And in the case of men, nothing at all. This is a control. So with respect to the suffering that another person that has misbehaved with you may be feeling, you feel nothing. Don't care about him at all. Sod him. And not only that, this is the brain of suffering. The brain of enjoyment actually gets activated. The more he suffers, the better time they have. In women, it doesn't happen in the same way, not with the physical pain. It's been done. This has been done in women. Don't you start thinking now that women are better than men. They can be just as naughty, just as bad. But men react more to physical pain, but not if it has got to do with moral loss. If this had to do with the loss of reputation, then same thing. They would say, sod it, we don't care. Right, to finish with. Now, yes, the last one. Some guys in Cambridge have said, yes, all these things is true. There are experiments, there are games, it's about imagination. Researchers have set it all up. And they tend to make us think that the tendencies that are good, generous, cooperative, are more powerful than they actually are. Notice that I started saying that we have the potential for the 70% to become bad, even though the really, really bad guys are only a 1, 2, 3, maximum 5%. The problem is that they often have success, social and financial success, but well, that's another subject. Well, they carried out these experimental procedures, very nice. And now it consists on now putting all this in real terms, not imaginary, but real terms. And they call it the experimental setup of the real pain versus gain, personal gain. It's a situation like many of the ones I've explained. It's a milligram situation. They do it with individuals who know each other. They arrive to the lab. They spend some time together. They fill questionnaires together. They explain things about their life, and they kind of develop a relationship. And all of a sudden, one of them needs to receive, and the other one is the one that is going to take decisions. But the truth is that it's a confederation. But they ensure that they have developed some kind of relationship between the two. So what they do then is they show him a video where this person is suffering because they're applying electrical shocks, that the person that is deciding, takes a decision, is going to decide, the one that's going to decide whether he sends them or not has already received them previously. So the experiment set up so that he actually suffers them before and feels them. But here there is money there. They give them £20. And every time, it's quite complex, they start getting images and stuff, but whenever they get a stimulus, that warns them that the other one is going to have an electric shock. And you can say, well, I give you £1 of the £20 I had, which I could have enjoyed having, in order to save this electric shock to this person I just met. Let's see the results. Results. When they ask these, in terms of imagination, all the boys and girls in England who are not as good as Americans, just amongst us, all the Cambridge boys and girls say, well, no, look, these are retained coins. These are coins that are retained in the end. This is in imagination. When they say, would you give the money? Would you give the money? Most of them will give the money. But when the money is real and the situation is real, that comes out of their pockets, look at this. The truth is that they tend to keep £12 after those 20. So they actually allow the other boy or girl they just met to receive an electric shock, so that in their pocket they have a little bit of money. In fact, more than half of the money. So this is proven in another way. I'm going to skip these, because it's genes and other things. I'm going to get to the real end. Right? Here I am at the real end. All this, fortunately, it's becoming technology. These notions that I've explained can be useful to help the wise policemen and judges, that even though you may not believe it, there are some, and actually many. How do we do this? Well, adding wisdom to the jury decision-making, to identifying testimonials, to the recovering diffuse memories, to the detections in some police procedures, to detect what's false and what's not in a police process, to make the lie detectors more complex, to set up temperamental profiles of the offenders, the systematic offenders, and to really get inside the mind of serial killers and other type of criminals. So study and work because the future is yours. Thank you.